let us invite you into a deeper reflection, one that speaks to the very heart of what we all ultimately long for as the years pass. Have you ever wondered, as time flows forward and we move into the latter chapters of our lives, what is it that we truly desire most? Is it the warmth of being surrounded by our children and grandchildren, or is it the simple joy of growing old with a cherished life partner? It's a question many of us ponder, and for some, there is a belief that our children should become the foundation of our later years, that after a lifetime spent nurturing them, it's only natural for them to shoulder the responsibility of caring for us in return. But life, as we know, doesn't always unfold in such predictable ways. Our children, with their own dreams, responsibilities, and the challenges of modern life, may not always have the capacity to be there for us in the ways we might expect. The world they navigate is often fast-paced and demanding, pulling them in many directions, and while their love for us is undoubtedly deep, they too must focus on building their own futures. As much as we may hope or expect them to be our caretakers, the reality is they are living their own stories. So, where does that leave us? To truly enjoy a peaceful, fulfilling, and contented old age, we cannot solely rely on the presence or support of our children. Instead, we must take charge of our own well-being by building a life that is steady, resilient, and independent, anchored by three crucial pillars of security. These pillars are not just about financial stability or physical health, but about the emotional and mental strength that will carry us gracefully through the later stages of life. Let us now explore together what it takes to cultivate these vital foundations for a joyful and meaningful old age, where peace, happiness, and self-reliance lead the way. First, it's about something that often goes unnoticed until it's almost too late: health. Many people spend their lives thinking that if they just save enough money, they'll be set for a comfortable and abundant future. It's almost like a race to accumulate as much as possible, thinking that financial security will solve every problem that might come with age. But what we often overlook is the one thing that truly makes all that wealth meaningful: our health. It's the foundation of everything. There's a timeless saying that many of us have heard, but few of us take seriously: health is wealth. You see, when you're young, it's easy to think that your body will always keep up with your ambitions, but that's where many people go wrong. The truth is, in our younger years, we tend to prioritize everything but our health. We throw ourselves into our work, chasing success, promotions, and financial stability. The excitement of progress and the lure of achievement blinds us to what we're giving up in return: our well-being. We push through the long hours, ignore the signs of fatigue, and often sacrifice the very thing that keeps us going: our bodies. What's ironic is that when we're older, we often find ourselves looking back and realizing we'd give anything to reverse those choices. At that point, many people would trade all their wealth just to get their health back, to feel energetic and pain-free again. But here's the thing: we can't turn back the clock. Waiting until old age to start caring about your health is a mistake that far too many people make. By then, the damage has often been done. You might have a substantial bank account, but if your body is constantly battling illness or exhaustion, that wealth does little to bring joy or fulfillment. A healthy body is the true key to happiness, because without it, life becomes limited, no matter how much money you've saved. Even the most luxurious life feels empty if it's spent in hospitals or burdened by chronic pain. As we age, our bodies naturally undergo changes. This is a reality we all face. Our energy levels dip, and the things we used to do effortlessly become more of a challenge. We don't recover from things as quickly, and the resilience we once took for granted starts to fade. You might think, well, my children will take care of me when the time comes. But consider this, even if they want to, even if they are the most loving and devoted children, will they always have the time, the capacity, and the means to do so? Life pulls them in many directions, and despite their best intentions, they have their own responsibilities to manage. Without good health, the ability to live independently diminishes, and unfortunately, that often means becoming a burden. And let's be honest, no parent ever wants to feel like a burden to their children. We all want to be there for them, not the other way around. By taking care of your health now, you're not only safeguarding your own future, but also easing the weight on your loved ones. You're giving them the gift of knowing that you're strong, capable, and living well without needing their constant support. Think about it this way. Your health is like an investment, but instead of financial returns, the payoff is freedom. Freedom to enjoy your life, to stay active, to be present with your family without limitations. But this isn't just about avoiding illness. It's about preserving the vitality that allows you to truly live, not just exist. When you invest in your health, by moving your body, eating nourishing foods, getting enough rest, you're building a foundation that keeps you strong, resilient, and able to face whatever comes your way. Many people underestimate how much their health influences their overall experience of life. It's not just about avoiding diseases or staying out of hospitals. A healthy body means having the energy to pursue your passions, to wake up each day feeling capable and motivated. It means being able to play with your grandchildren, to travel, to engage in your hobbies without limitation. A strong, healthy body fuels a vibrant spirit, and that spirit keeps you young, regardless of how many years you've lived. Now, we know what some of you might be thinking. I've spent years neglecting my health. Is it too late to make a change? Absolutely not. The human body is remarkably adaptable. Even small, consistent changes can lead to significant improvements over time. Maybe you start by walking more, or by choosing healthier meals, or by taking moments to rest and recharge. These small efforts add up. Over time, you'll notice that you feel better, move more easily, and live with greater ease. And as your body grows stronger, so too does your quality of life. We have to understand that the choices we make today will shape the years ahead. By prioritizing your health, you're ensuring that you can continue living life on your own terms. You remain independent, capable of making your own decisions and enjoying the fruits of your labor. Money can provide comfort, yes, but health is what allows you to experience that comfort fully. It gives you the ability to appreciate the life you've built without being hindered by physical limitations. One of the most important things you can do for yourself and for the people you love is to listen to your body. It speaks to you all the time, giving you signals when something needs attention. Pay attention to those signals. If you're feeling tired, rest. If you're feeling stiff, move. If your body craves nourishment, give it the nutrients it needs. Ignoring these signals only leads to larger problems down the road, problems that could have been prevented with a little care and attention. Health isn't just about the physical, it impacts every area of your life, including your emotional and mental well-being. When you feel good in your body, you're more optimistic, more resilient, and more engaged with the world around you. You have more patience, more energy for your loved ones, and more enthusiasm for the things that bring you joy. And when you're in a good place mentally and emotionally, everything else tends to fall into place more easily. You navigate challenges with more grace, and you find joy in the little moments that make life meaningful. It's easy to take your health for granted when you're young and strong, but as the years pass, you'll realize that it's your greatest asset. No amount of wealth can buy back the years or the health you've lost. So take care of yourself now. Your future self will thank you for the effort you put in today. By maintaining a healthy body, you open up a world of possibilities. You give yourself the gift of time to explore, time to connect, time to enjoy the fruits of all you've worked for. Something that becomes more important as the years roll on, those later stages of life when we find ourselves reflecting on what truly brings happiness and comfort. As we age, many of us think about our children, our grandchildren, and the joy that comes from watching them grow. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But here's something you need to understand, it's not the whole story. Life doesn't stop at the love we have for our children. Even in the later stages, we are still our own people. We still need love, understanding, and companionship. And that's where your life partner comes in. You see, as much as we care for our children and as much as they care for us, there's a unique role that a life partner plays in our lives. There's an old saying that goes, a spouse's care is worth more than a child's. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. No one knows you like the person who has walked through decades with you, sharing your joys, your struggles, your triumphs, and even your most mundane days. The kind of understanding that only builds over a lifetime together, it's irreplaceable. Now, we're not talking about just the practical things, like helping each other get around or preparing meals. Those things are important, but they're just the surface. The care that really matters in a long-term partnership is about emotional connection. It's about having someone who knows your quirks, your flaws, your strengths, and still chooses to love and support you. In old age, that kind of deep understanding becomes even more precious. You don't have to explain yourself to your partner, they just get it. And that's something children, no matter how devoted, can never fully provide. But what happens if life hasn't been that kind to you? What if you've lost your partner along the way? This is a reality for many, and it's a hard one. Even when you have financial stability, even when your children are supportive, there's a kind of loneliness that sets in when you're missing that partner by your side. Loneliness in old age can be one of the most profound feelings, especially when you've grown accustomed to having someone share your life with you every day. Let's face it, no matter how wonderful your children are, they have their own lives. It's not their job to fill the void left by the absence of a partner. And we shouldn't expect them to. They have families, careers, responsibilities of their own. Yes, they can visit, they can help, they can love you deeply, but there's a difference between the love of a child and the companionship of a partner. One doesn't replace the other. That's why, for your own happiness, it's important to recognize the role of a life partner in your later years. If you have one, cherish that relationship. Make time for each other, even when life seems to be pulling you in different directions. And if you find yourself alone, acknowledge the importance of companionship. It's never too late to seek out new connections, even friendships, that can bring you comfort and joy. You're still a person with emotional needs, no matter your age. Now, let's shift our focus to something equally crucial, financial security. You might manage to get through your younger years without a lot of money. Maybe you were able to scrape by, or maybe you were fortunate enough to thrive. But let's be honest, old age is a different story. As your body changes, as health challenges arise, you start to understand just how important it is to have financial resources at your disposal. Think about it. When you're young, you can work your way through almost any problem. But as you get older, your options narrow. You may not have the physical strength or the energy to tackle challenges like you once did. And without financial security, old age can become an uphill battle. Medical expenses, treatments, even day-to-day comforts, all of these things require money. And if you don't have it, you could find yourself dependent on your children, which can lead to stress and tension within the family. The last thing you want is to become a financial burden on your children, right? You love them too much to see them struggle to support you when they're facing their own challenges. Many of them will be nearing their own retirement, perhaps juggling work, family, and their own health concerns. Adding the financial responsibility of a parent to that equation can strain even the most loving families. So, you see, having a financial cushion isn't just about you, it's about preserving your relationships with the ones you love. Without financial security, you might find yourself forced into situations that you wouldn't have chosen. You've probably heard stories of elderly people being mistreated, neglected, or disrespected because they're financially dependent on others. It's heartbreaking, but it's a reality that some face. That's why planning for your financial future is a gift to both yourself and your children. You deserve to live your later years with dignity and independence, not at the mercy of others. If you've been fortunate enough to save, or to have a pension, that's wonderful. It means you have the means to care for yourself, to pay for your medical needs, and to enjoy the simple pleasures of life without constantly worrying about money. But if you haven't had that opportunity, it's important to start thinking about how you can secure your financial future now. Even small steps can make a big difference in the long run. Let's be clear, money in old age isn't just about luxury. It's about safety, health, and well-being. It allows you to make choices that are best for you, rather than being forced into decisions based on necessity. It's about having the freedom to live out your days in peace and comfort, knowing that you're in control of your own life. Dear friends, we've talked about two essential aspects of a fulfilling old age: your life partner and your financial security. Now let's bring them together with one more important element: your health. Because, after all, without your health, even the most loving partner and the largest bank account won't be able to give you the happiness you deserve. Health is the foundation upon which everything else is built. As we age, our bodies change, and we must take responsibility for maintaining our well-being. Eating right, staying active, managing stress, these things matter even more in your later years. You owe it to yourself and to your loved ones to take care of your health, so that you can fully enjoy the time you have with them. The next part is going to be one of the most profound shifts in your life, one that demands your heart and mind to come together in a way they may never have before. Losing a spouse is a life event that no one can ever fully prepare for, and yet it happens to so many. We're going to walk through this moment together because it's not just about surviving this loss, it's about learning how to truly live again. We will explore three important lessons, or as we might call them, three paths, that can lead you to not just cope but thrive after losing your spouse. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a new chapter in your life, one that feels unfamiliar and, at times, overwhelming. You've spent years, maybe decades, sharing your life with your spouse, and now the world feels different, emptier, perhaps even darker. But before we go any further, I want you to know this: what you're feeling is not only normal, it's expected. When someone who has been such an integral part of your existence is suddenly gone, it's like losing a piece of yourself. And that's where we begin, by recognizing and embracing the grief that comes with this loss. Grief, in its many forms, is a natural response to loss. However, here's the first secret that people who have thrived after such a loss have learned: you must give yourself permission to grieve, but you cannot allow that grief to consume you forever. It's not about suppressing your emotions, but rather about understanding that while grief will always be a part of your story, it does not have to define the rest of your life. The key here is balance, allowing yourself to mourn while also making space for healing. Take Callista, for instance. She lost her husband at 67, and she found herself engulfed in sorrow. It was as though the life she had known vanished with him. There were nights, she recalled, where the silence was so loud, I couldn't sleep. The memories of him were everywhere, and the pain felt unbearable. But Callista did something powerful. She let herself feel that pain without letting it drown her. She understood that as much as she wanted to turn back time, the reality was that she had to keep moving forward. And that's the turning point, recognizing that while grief is inevitable, so is the potential for new beginnings. This brings us to the second secret: rediscovering your independence. When you've spent a significant portion of your life in partnership, it's easy to forget how to stand on your own. The habits you've formed, the routines you've shared, they all become part of your identity. But here's the truth: just because you've been part of a couple doesn't mean you've lost the ability to be independent. You still have the strength and the capability to manage your own life, even though it might feel daunting at first. Independence, in this context, doesn't mean isolation. It means taking charge of your own decisions, being active in your own life, and not relying on others, like your children, to fill the gap left by your spouse. Callista found this out the hard way when she leaned too heavily on her kids for emotional support. At first, I thought I needed them to make me feel whole again, she said, but I realized that wasn't fair to them or to me. I needed to find my own footing. And that's exactly what she did. She started making small decisions on her own, from managing her finances to taking up new hobbies. Rebuilding independence after losing a spouse is like learning to walk again. It's not that you've forgotten how, it's just that you've been used to walking with someone beside you. Now, you're walking alone, but with every step, you gain more confidence, more strength. It's about realizing that you can still navigate the world, that you still have the capacity to lead your life, and perhaps most importantly, that you deserve to. The third secret we're going to explore is something many struggle with: embracing new beginnings. There's a common misconception that after losing a spouse, life as you knew it is over, and there's no more joy or excitement to be found. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Callista discovered this when she decided to explore new interests, meet new people, and even travel to places she and her husband had never been. It wasn't easy, taking those first steps never are, but once she opened herself to the possibility of new experiences, she found something she hadn't expected: happiness. New beginnings don't mean forgetting the past. They don't erase the love or the memories you shared with your spouse. Instead, they add to the richness of your life. It's about finding joy in the now, even as you carry the past with you. Callista didn't replace her husband. That was never the goal. What she did was allow herself to keep living, to continue growing, to find meaning and fulfillment in places she hadn't looked before. It's important to remember that new beginnings come in many forms. It could be something as simple as picking up a new hobby or as transformative as moving to a new place. What matters is that you remain open to the possibility that life still has much to offer. Callista began painting, a passion she had never explored before, and found that it became a new way for her to express the emotions she was feeling. Through that creative outlet, she discovered a new part of herself, a part that had been waiting to be uncovered. Another significant part of embracing new beginnings is allowing yourself to form new relationships. This doesn't necessarily mean romantic ones, although that can happen too. It's about reconnecting with friends, forming new social circles, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift and support you. Callista joined a community group, something she had been hesitant to do at first, but it ended up being one of the best decisions she made. She found a support network of people who had also experienced loss, and through those connections, she found comfort and understanding. We need to talk about the fear that comes with stepping into new beginnings. It's natural to feel hesitant, maybe even guilty, about moving on when your spouse is no longer there. You might worry that pursuing happiness is a betrayal of the love you shared. But the truth is, living fully and embracing new experiences is the greatest tribute you can offer to the life you had together. Your spouse would want you to continue living, to seek joy, to find purpose. Callista realized this when she took her first solo trip, a journey she and her husband had always talked about but never took. "It felt like I was carrying him with me," she said. And in a way, I was. Every step forward is a step toward healing. And healing doesn't mean forgetting, it means finding a way to live with the loss while still embracing the life that remains. Callista's story is one of countless others who have found a way to thrive after loss. It's not about erasing the past, but about learning how to integrate it into your present in a way that honors both your love and your life. As you consider these 3 secrets, allowing yourself to grieve, rediscovering your independence, and embracing new beginnings, we want you to remember one thing: you are capable of more than you know. The strength you need to move forward is already within you. Sometimes, it's just a matter of uncovering it, of giving yourself permission to live again, to find joy again, and to believe that life still has so much to offer. This journey won't be without its challenges. There will be moments when the grief resurfaces, when the loneliness feels overwhelming. But those moments don't last forever. And with time, patience, and a willingness to move forward, you'll find that the darkness begins to lift, replaced by new light, new hope. Callista's journey is one of hope, resilience, and transformation. And yours can be too. There's no right or wrong way to navigate this chapter of your life. What matters is that you keep going, that you keep seeking, that you keep living. Life after loss is not only possible, it can be beautiful. You just have to be willing to take that first step. So, as you stand at the crossroads of grief and possibility, ask yourself this: what would your spouse want for you? Would they want you to retreat from the world, or would they want you to continue seeking joy and purpose? The answer, we believe, is clear. The last part is something many of us don't think about often enough. We picture our golden years as peaceful, perhaps surrounded by loved ones, enjoying the fruits of our labor. But what happens when that vision doesn't quite match reality? What happens when the relationship with those we thought we'd rely on becomes strained, and the comfort we expected turns into quiet resentment? Today, let's talk about the journey of aging, particularly the delicate balance of independence, and how, sometimes, the best company we can have is our own. Take Mrs. Jane, for instance. At 65, she found herself navigating a new chapter of life, not as a retiree living harmoniously with her family, but as a widow attempting to find peace on her own terms. After her husband's passing, she did what many in her situation might do. She moved in with her daughter, thinking it was the natural next step. The mutual exchange of care, right? After all, she raised her daughter, so why wouldn't her daughter want to return the favor now? But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Initially, things seemed to work out. Mrs. Jane helped with household chores, cared for her grandson, and fit herself into the daily rhythms of her daughter's home. Yet, over time, she noticed subtle shifts. It wasn't just about disagreements over money or child-rearing. It was about the unspoken burden that started to weigh heavily on both sides. Mrs. Jane began to feel like she was overstaying her welcome, as though her presence was more of an obligation than a comfort. And her daughter, though loving, couldn't hide her growing frustration either. Now, this isn't just Mrs. Jane's story. It's the story of countless elderly parents who move in with their children, hoping to feel needed, only to realize that life doesn't always fit into neat expectations. When you live with your grown children, you bring with you decades of habits, opinions, and ways of living that don't always align with the household you're stepping into. Mrs. Jane, like many others, found herself at odds with her daughter's more modern, more relaxed parenting style, and tensions brewed over time. But the deeper issue was emotional. Mrs. Jane gave everything, her time, her energy, her love, and in return, she felt increasingly sidelined. That feeling of being a burden? It's not just about the practicalities of living under someone else's roof. It's about the unspoken dynamics, the tiny moments that add up to make you feel like you're no longer essential. And that's what makes this conversation so important. As we age, there's an unspoken expectation that our children will take care of us. It's ingrained in us, culturally and emotionally. But the reality is that independence becomes a rare and precious thing. Mrs. Jane's realization that she could find happiness on her own, that she could rediscover herself in solitude, offers us a glimpse into a different kind of golden year. One where peace doesn't come from living with family, but from learning to live with yourself. You see, there's a certain power in solitude that we often overlook. Mrs. Jane's story illustrates this beautifully. After leaving her daughter's home, she had a tough adjustment period. Loneliness crept in, and she felt aimless without her daily duties. But slowly, she began to fill her days with activities that were for her alone. She joined classes, made new friends, and started hobbies that sparked joy. And what did she find? A kind of contentment that she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't waiting for approval or appreciation. She was living for herself. Now, does that mean living with family is inherently bad? Of course not. But what it does mean is that we should never lose sight of our own autonomy, no matter how tempting it might be to lean on others as we age. Mrs. Jane's journey teaches us that relying too heavily on our children for happiness and purpose can lead to disillusionment. Sometimes, they can't give us what we need, not because they don't love us, but because their lives have their own complexities. Independence in your later years doesn't just mean financial freedom. It means emotional and social freedom as well. It means pursuing your passions, your interests, and finding ways to stay connected to the world around you that aren't dependent on your family. Mrs. Jane's decision to move out was a brave one. It took courage to acknowledge that she needed more than what her daughter's home could offer her emotionally. And this brings us to a key lesson. Being a parent doesn't end when your children grow up. But being a person, an individual with dreams, desires, and the right to pursue happiness, that's a lifelong commitment. Mrs. Jane's story isn't about regret, it's about renewal. She found that, despite her years, she still had the capacity to evolve, to grow, and to find joy in places she hadn't looked before. So, what can we take from this? First, it's the recognition that age doesn't define your ability to reinvent yourself. Mrs. Jane could have continued living with her daughter, accepting the friction and resentment as just part of the deal. But she didn't. She made the harder choice, to embrace her solitude and carve out a new life for herself. Second, we must understand that family dynamics shift over time. The relationship you have with your children when they're young doesn't always translate into the same closeness in later years. And that's okay. It doesn't mean there's a lack of love. It simply means that life moves forward, and sometimes, we must let go of our old roles and step into new ones. Finally, Mrs. Jane teaches us the importance of being prepared for the unexpected. She didn't plan for her husband's passing, and she didn't plan to feel alienated in her daughter's home. But when those realities hit, she adapted. And that's what life is about, continuing to adapt, to grow, and to seek fulfillment, no matter what stage you're in. In closing, remember that aging isn't about retreating into the background. It's about continuing to live with purpose, with passion, and with the understanding that you are enough, even when you're standing on your own 2 feet. Let Mrs. Jane's story be a reminder that independence, in every sense of the word, is a gift we can give ourselves at any age.